our dear friend, Mike Kaufman, and we're going to talk about mediating relationships. Where
So
should
Mike,
we
this
dig
is
in,
a,
Anjali?
yeah, so Mike, I know that this is a topic that's interesting to you because you have been exploring a few different ways in which to mediate relationships. Tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about what this topic means for you.
Um, it is very dear and close to my heart. I would say it started when I got my coaching certification in coaching systems and relationships. That's really where I started to see the power and the amazing transformation that can happen when you hold the relationship itself within a coaching context as its own um, individual entity that has its own needs, it has its own interests, it has its own wants. And then from there, I got into professional mediation and dispute resolution and conflict resolution. And you can resolve a dispute when somebody says, "I offer you $5." No, I want it for $20, and you just kind of find something in between.
Yeah.
But it's much more impactful when you can kind of dig underneath the content, the surface content of the dispute, and really go towards the relationship between the two people.
Mm,
If they're two strangers haggling over something on Kijiji or Craigslist, that's easy. That's just, disputes. But when you have two neighbors who are arguing over the price of a fence, right? Sure, you can go the money route, but that's not going to resolve the underlying relationship, because after whatever number comes up and somebody decides to pay whatever, they still got to live next to each other,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
So
So
tell me, Mike, which is, that just dove into a little bit in our climate um, of where people say like family relationships are really tough. How, and they don't know how to talk to one another when they're on opposing sides of views, especially when it comes to the political space.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to them?
Um, that is such a deep topic, um, because politics in particular are very polarizing today. Um, and it's not just politics. There's been a lot of polarizing topics for throughout generations. I would say the first thing you need to do is so I'm a skier. I love to go skiing in the wintertime. And one of the first rules of skiing is to check yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. is is a great saying. Um, and I think that's true even when it comes to relationships. You got to check in with yourself first. Where are you? Are you just like boiling over with rage and you're unable to have a discussion, right? Then you need to kind of check in with yourself and maybe go deal with that first before you even engage with somebody else in a potentially polarizing discussion.
yeah.
Assuming you can get to that point, um, understanding and empathy go a long way. And this I think is what a lot of people don't understand. Um, Understanding and empathy does not equal agreement.
Mhm.
I don't have to agree with what you are saying to have empathy for where you're coming from, your lived experience, what's going on with you right now, how this particular issue that we're talking about is affecting you, to understand that we have different lived experiences, we have different goals, maybe, right? I can completely disagree with you and still understand you and still understand where you are coming from. And that's really
So
challenging for some people.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where kind of a mediator can come in for both those things that you talked about. Like, so does a mediator actually help you as an individual check in with yourself and understand more clearly where you're coming from, like many of us do, even with coaching? And then does it support the building of empathy with the other, person or people in the relationship?
Um, I would say if you're doing the work of helping somebody to check in with themselves, I would probably classify that more on the coaching side of things and the
Okay.
mediation side of things, because if you're mediating, you already have the two disputants together in a room. And you can do individual, case study with the two people offline before the mediation. But that still feels more like, I'm using jargon here, that still feels like case development rather
Mm-hmm.
than the coaching of the individual to be like, what's going on with you right now? How are you feeling? What do you need to be able to enter into this? That feels more like coaching to me than real mediation case development. Um, then it's what you say, then you bring the two people into the room, and then you're working on, trying to establish some kind of empathy with the other person, with the other side, trying to find some kind of alignment, right? Trying to find some kind of point, no matter how small it is, that they actually agree on, and then
Mm-hmm.
attempt to build some type of resolution from there.
Yeah, definitely. I found that, it, because the biggest things, like you talk about empathy, in that listening builds curiosity, which builds empathy, right?
Absolutely.
And what's the wicked problem, right? The paradoxical problem with mediation, I would say, is recognizing when you need it. What like, is there tips that people can look at to recognize, hey, you know what, I need a mediator here?
Um, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, like on the surface, if you think you can't negotiate something on your own, you're too triggered, you're too lit up, you're too whatever, that you don't feel like you can, approach it on your own, then absolutely seek, an outside third party to help you with that. Um, and honestly, interestingly enough, that's true for both mediation and coaching. So I'm also a systems and a team coach, right? Or a relationship coach. Um, so, if you're having issues in your relationship and you just feel like you need that neutral third party to kind of like vent to, or to be able to help you find a way forward, then that would be a good opportunity to find either a coach or a mediator. Mediators are typically around disputes of some kind, whereas coaching is probably a little bit more broad than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess with the coaching kind of mediation, there is a desire to further the relationship, and that's what they're coming to you with. They want to either kind of move forward either together or in a better way, even if it is separate, I suppose. And they're looking for a third party to be able to do that. But when it
Absolutely.
comes to dispute mediation, there's some actual uh, issue that they want to resolve.
Right.
Are they looking for, I want to win? Or are they looking for a win-win? Or are they looking to kind of find a solution that is even better than what they could have even considered individually?
I would say when there's a dispute, a lot of people go to mediation, honestly, out of uh, because of a financial reason,
Yeah.
because lawyers are very, very expensive and mediators are typically quite cheaper. Right? So again, I'll go to the neighbor example. You know, if there's a fence there, they could both lawyer up and go to court and do all this sort of stuff and have a judge eventually decide on their behalf who was right and who was wrong, who pays what, right? But that's a very long, lengthy process. It's a very expensive process. It's a very emotionally draining process. And as I said, at the end of the day, they still got to live together. They're still neighbors. they're still going to see each other, not live together, but live next to each other, right? So yeah, I would say that a lot, maybe not all, but a lot of mediations start from a legal position, like there's some sort of dispute that they want to have resolved. But a good mediator will find a way to resolve it in a way that at the very least doesn't further damage the relationship, and in the best case actually enhances the relationship in some sort of way.
So for people who are at home and they try to mediate relationships, maybe family relationships that are toxic, long disputes and things, what would you offer for that person who wants to try to help? Because most people won't seek out a professional mediator. And a family may say, I will volunteer so we can just end this feud, right? Um, what golden nugget would you give them, Mike?
So first of all, peace be with you. That's that is hard because you're a family member. You're part of the system, right? You can't be completely neutral, no matter how hard you try. Um, what sort of golden nugget? You know what? Actually, I would say I would come back to check yourself, even as a mediator, especially as the mediator. You need to be able to check yourself and be okay with what ends up happening. And this is why it's really hard, even as a family member, because you might go in and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to be like this, crazy Uncle Larry is, spouting off his stuff again. And, my poor snowflake cousin is, having issues and whatever. So I'm going to try and mediate this long-standing toxic relationship. And you might get somewhere and you might get nowhere. And being okay with that, like knowing that you tried, knowing that you put yourself out there, knowing that you had the best interest at heart. And at the end of the day, the two people just were not movable. Because that's also true in professional mediation. You hope to come up with a resolution to the conflict, but if one or both of your parties are stuck in the mud and they're not willing to inch forward in any way, the mediation fails. That's just true, right? And being a mediator, if that's what you're trying to do, being okay that you did the best job you could, you put yourself out there, you were hoping for a resolution to the conflict, and in this particular case, there was no resolution to be had. Doesn't mean there won't be one in another year, right? Doesn't mean that there won't be one with two other different disputants. Just in this case, in this time, of resolution was not possible, and that's okay.
So mediators have to be kind to themselves too.
Absolutely.
And there's learning and
Yes.
not getting the results you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we'll close with that. The wonderful nugget that you shared with some of us who might find ourselves mediating relationships. And I'm going to paraphrase what you said. Know that you have their best interest at heart. Don't get so tied to the outcome. And know that there's still opportunity for that to succeed in the future, in case you have not been able to move them forward. But the likelihood that you might have been able to move them forward is also pretty high. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for having this conversation with us. We love having these conversations. Yeah, we love having these conversations with our friends on our live with April and Anjali show. So those of you out there who are watching and like listening to these conversations that we have with our friends and the topics that we cover around breath and freedom, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook, so you'll be alerted when we go live again. And hopefully we'll see you again in our next episode. And thank you again, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank